After watching this video, you will never look at your backyard the same way again. Somewhere out there, right now, while families sleep behind locked doors and porch lights glow over empty driveways, a war is being fought in complete silence. It has no soldiers, no headlines, no witnesses. It happens between the hours of midnight and dawn, in the narrow strip of darkness between a fence and a hedge, between a garden shed and a drainage ditch. Two predators, one larger and merciless, the other smaller and desperate, are locked in a struggle for survival that has been unfolding for decades across thousands of American towns and cities. This is not a war in some remote wilderness. This is a war happening in the very neighborhoods where millions of people raise their children, walk their dogs, and sleep only a few feet away from a battlefield they never knew existed. By the end of this video, you will understand why the suburban fox, once a common sight in gardens and parks across the country, is vanishing from entire regions, and why the animal responsible for its disappearance has become one of the most successful predators in the history of North America. For most of the 20th century, the coyote and the red fox lived in an uneasy but manageable balance across much of the continent. Coyotes preferred open plains, deserts, and the edges of forests, while foxes thrived in more fragmented landscapes, slipping through underbrush and hedgerows where their smaller bodies gave them an advantage. But the balance began to shift dramatically as American suburbs expanded outward in every direction. Housing developments swallowed forests, golf courses replaced meadows, and drainage canals cut new corridors through what used to be wild land. Instead of destroying the wildlife that once lived there, this expansion created something unexpected, a hybrid habitat, part wilderness and part civilization, that turned out to be a paradise for one predator above all others. The coyote did not just tolerate the suburbs, it conquered them. Coyotes are among the most adaptable large carnivores on the planet, and nowhere is that adaptability more visible than in the way they have colonized American cities. Studies conducted in cities including Chicago, Los Angeles, and Denver have shown coyote populations thriving within city limits, often unnoticed by the very residents who share their streets. A coyote can weigh between 20 and 45 pounds, run in bursts of over 40 miles per hour, and survive on a diet ranging from rodents and rabbits to fruit, garbage, pet food, and, when the opportunity arises, unattended cats and small dogs. Unlike wolves, which require large unbroken wilderness to sustain their packs, coyotes have proven they can live comfortably in a culvert beneath a highway overpass or in the dense brush behind a shopping center. This flexibility allowed them to expand their range from the western plains all the way to the east coast in less than 100 years, a migration so fast and so complete that many biologists consider it one of the most remarkable ecological expansions of any mammal in modern history. The red fox, by contrast, is a smaller and more delicate predator, weighing on average between 8 and 15 pounds, built for stealth rather than confrontation. For decades, foxes thrived in the very same fragmented suburban landscapes that coyotes would later dominate, because foxes require exactly the kind of patchwork terrain that suburbs provide: small wooded lots, overgrown fence lines, storm drains, and gardens rich with rodents and insects. In neighborhoods without coyotes, foxes became a familiar and often beloved presence, seen trotting along sidewalks at dusk or raising kits beneath a homeowner's shed. But the fox's success in these environments depended entirely on the absence of a larger predator capable of exploiting the very same resources. Once the coyote arrived, that fragile arrangement collapsed. What happens when a coyote and a fox occupy the same suburban block is rarely something homeowners observe directly, but the evidence has been documented extensively through GPS collar studies and motion-triggered cameras placed in backyards across the country. Coyotes do not merely compete with foxes for food, they actively kill them. Researchers describe this phenomenon using the term intra-guild predation, a clinical way of describing something far more brutal in practice. One predator hunting down and eliminating a smaller predator, not primarily for food, but to remove a rival from its territory. Fox carcasses recovered in suburban environments frequently show wounds consistent with coyote attacks, and camera trap footage has repeatedly captured the unmistakable choreography of this rivalry: a fox freezing mid-stride at the scent of a coyote, then vanishing into the underbrush within seconds, its entire body language transformed from confident forager into fugitive. This dynamic has a name in ecological science: mesopredator release, and its inverse, mesopredator suppression. In the years when top predators like wolves and mountain lions were eliminated from much of the eastern and central United States, mid-sized predators such as coyotes flourished in their absence, effectively becoming the new apex predator of these landscapes. But this same principle now plays out one level down the food chain, in suburban backyards rather than open wilderness. Where coyotes have moved in, fox populations have collapsed, sometimes by more than half within a few short years, according to studies conducted in the suburbs of Chicago and other major metropolitan areas. Where coyotes are controlled or absent, fox numbers rebound almost immediately, revealing just how directly one predator's presence determines the other's survival. The fox is not losing this war because it is weak. It is losing because it is caught in an ecological trap it never chose to enter, squeezed between human expansion on one side and a superior predator exploiting that same expansion on the other. The behavioral adaptations foxes have developed to survive alongside coyotes reveal just how much pressure they are under. Studies using radio collars have shown that in neighborhoods where coyotes are present, foxes shift their entire daily rhythm, becoming almost exclusively active in the narrow hours before dawn when coyote activity is lowest. They avoid open lawns and parks, the very features that once made suburbs so hospitable to them, and instead cling to the tightest, most enclosed spaces available. Dense shrubbery against house foundations, narrow gaps beneath decks, and thickets too tight for a coyote's larger frame to comfortably enter. In some documented cases, foxes have even begun denning closer to human homes and busy streets, not despite the danger of people and traffic, but because of it, since coyotes themselves tend to avoid the areas of highest human activity. In effect, many suburban foxes have made a desperate calculation: better to risk proximity to cars and people than to remain within reach of a coyote's jaws. The economics of this rivalry come down to a brutal simplicity. Both animals are opportunistic omnivores, competing for an overlapping menu of small mammals, birds, insects, fruit, and human refuse. A single suburban block simply does not contain enough resources to support both predators at high densities, and when resources are scarce, size and aggression decide the outcome. A coyote does not need to be hungry to kill a fox. Researchers who have necropsied fox carcasses have found cases where the fox was killed and left uneaten, a stark indication that the motive was territorial elimination rather than predation for food. This is the coldest truth of the suburban war. It is not always a fight for survival in the sense of hunger, but a fight for exclusive control over the shrinking pockets of habitat that human development has left behind. Homeowners across the country have unknowingly become witnesses to this conflict, often without realizing what they were seeing. A once reliable fox den beneath a garden shed suddenly empties and is never used again. A neighborhood that reported regular fox sightings for years falls silent within a single season. Trail camera footage submitted to wildlife researchers has occasionally captured the war in real time. A fox darting across a lawn in the dead of night, only for a coyote to appear in the same frame minutes later, moving with the unmistakable purposefulness of an animal patrolling territory it considers its own. In several well-documented urban and suburban studies, including long-term tracking projects in the Chicago metropolitan area, researchers found that fox home ranges shrank dramatically and shifted toward the very edges of coyote territories, essentially pushed into the least desirable real estate the landscape had to offer. Yet the story is not simply one of total annihilation. Foxes have not vanished from the suburban landscape entirely, and in some regions, gray foxes, a distinct species with a crucial evolutionary advantage, have found a way to persist alongside coyotes that red foxes cannot match. Unlike red foxes, gray foxes possess curved, semi-retractable claws that allow them to climb trees, an ability almost unique among canids. When a coyote closes in, a gray fox can escape vertically, scrambling up a trunk or onto a low roofline, a lifeline denied to their red-coated cousins, who remain committed to a life lived entirely on the ground. This single anatomical difference has allowed gray fox populations to survive in certain wooded suburban pockets even as red foxes disappear from the same neighborhoods. A striking example of how a few million years of evolutionary divergence can determine which species wins a war being fought in modern American backyards. The consequences of this silent conflict ripple outward far beyond the two predators themselves. Foxes are voracious hunters of rodents, and their decline in suburban ecosystems has been linked in several studies to noticeable increases in local rodent populations, the same rodents responsible for property damage, crop losses in garden plots, and the spread of ticks carrying Lyme disease. In this way, the outcome of an unseen skirmish between a coyote and a fox in someone's backyard can directly influence the number of ticks in that same yard the following summer, and the health risks faced by the family living there. Wildlife ecologists increasingly describe suburban predator dynamics as a hidden layer of infrastructure as important to public health as sewage systems or storm drains, an invisible mechanism quietly determining the daily reality of millions of households who have no idea it exists. Human behavior itself has become an unwitting participant in this war, often tipping the balance further in the coyotes' favor. Unsecured garbage cans, pet food left outdoors overnight, and fallen fruit left to rot beneath backyard trees all provide exactly the kind of easy calories that allow coyote populations to reach higher densities than the landscape could otherwise support. Wildlife agencies in cities such as Denver and Los Angeles have run public awareness campaigns for years, urging residents to remove these attractants, not only to prevent conflicts between coyotes and pets, but because higher coyote densities directly correlate with faster fox displacement. In neighborhoods where residents have secured food sources and reduced coyote-friendly habitat, researchers have documented modest fox population recoveries within just a few years, proof that the outcome of this war, while driven by biology, is not entirely outside human influence. As night falls once more over the quiet streets of suburban America, the war continues exactly as it has for years, invisible to the people whose homes form its unlikely battlefield. Somewhere in the space between a fence line and a drainage ditch, a fox freezes at a scent carried on the wind, calculating in an instant whether to flee toward the safety of a porch light or the deeper cover of a neighbor's hedge. Somewhere else, a coyote moves through the same darkness with the calm confidence of an animal that has already won more of these encounters than it has lost. This is the reality hiding in plain sight across thousands of communities from coast to coast, a war with no headlines and no witnesses, decided one silent backyard encounter at a time, reshaping the wildlife of an entire continent while most of the people living beside it never even know it happened.